Hello and welcome to this online conference session. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to our strategic consultants, and in this session we're going to just talk about what EuRA's goals are to support our members in the strange post-COVID-19 world we're all about to find ourselves in. So first of all, it's a very bizarre prospect to be having a conference in my own home study. I'll tell you one thing, the quality of the coffee breaks is not nearly as good as it is when we're on site, I can tell you that much. It's great to see you all. Thank you for being here. I'm just going to take you across the screen and then we're going to talk one by one. So I have Gordon Kerr, then there's me, then there's Carmelina, we have Martina, we have Wendy, there's Tad, and we have Peggy. And it's great to see you all. We are so indebted to you all for everything that you bring to EuRA, for all your professionalism and for all your brilliance. We thank you and we salute you. And this is why we wanted to do this session, just to put across to our members and delegates how much you do in the background for EuRA and for the members. So I'm going to start with Martina. Martina, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Good to be here, and hi to everyone.
We have just rerun the introduction to the EuRA Global Quality Seal comprehensive training. I'm delighted to say that we had one of the biggest take-ups that we've had in quite a while, which was great. So that content has now been moved onto the EuRA Academy, and obviously Carmelina and I are going to talk about that in a minute. Martina, you have undertaken a serious piece of work for us in the last couple of weeks. Would you like to outline that for everyone?
Yeah, because, you know, it's time after lockdown now for 5, 6, 7 weeks, depends on the country where you're in. In the near future, and again, that depends on the country where you're doing business in, you have to go back to work, probably in different ways, but I mean, it's not like after coronavirus or after COVID-19, it will be with COVID-19, and that will take care till, I don't know, next year, summer next year, you know, hopefully not, but probably until the second wave of infections, whatever will come, and but we have to live with it. So we have to work with it, and the staying at home, working from home, working remotely won't be last forever. So it depends from the country, from the company, from your philosophy. But we thought it would be really good to prepare right now, because you have to prepare and to set up rules and regulations and policies in order how do you, or what is your intention to do business with Corona. So you have the responsibility for your employees, for your subcontractors, for your internal, external consultants, as well as for your customer clients and transferees and their families. So what we did is we prepared a paper you can use as a recommendation or as example. So we come up with a policy for employees, partners, and subcontractors. So this is more an internal policy, what people should do, how they should react. Of course, it's just an example. You have to definitely adapt it to your local law, your local registrations, as well as to your company-specific needs and requirements. A second policy we have as an example in this paper is a COVID-19 policy for customers, clients, transferees, and their families. I think that is, well, that is important as well, especially if you're consultants going back to the fields and working there. So you have to make sure that your customers, clients, and the transferees are aware of your specific regulation and rules and policies. Then the paper contains some organizational, some administrative information or suggestions, as well as some, you know, how do you have to quick up your office probably, and your cars, especially the cars you are transporting your transferees and their families within. Yeah, that's it. So I think it's a good paper. It's a good read through, and could give you, you know, some ideas what to do in the next couple of weeks, especially, or the next couple of days.
Brilliant, Martina. Thank you so much for doing that, and also for doing that so quickly. And I know how comprehensive it is. I've read it, and that is live on the website now. You can download that from the link on the coronavirus page, which is under the education tab, plus the EuRA Global Quality Seal page. Bear in mind, you have to be logged in order to access that document. It's a proprietary document. It's free for all EuRA members, but you do have to be logged in. Interesting, again, Martina, you know, when we talk about the seal and we talk about all the EuRA policies that underpin the seal, we always say the same thing. You always say, this is a guide, but you need to implement this for yourself, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't make sense to take it one by one. Oh, nice, you know, we have a paper, we take it over 100%. That's not the idea of it. It's really like, and should give you a guide. It's a guidance, it's a guideline, it's a checklist. Probably you have additional ideas, so please go ahead and implement them. Feedback would be nice as well. But I think for those of you, especially probably the smaller ones who has not an own department for HR or organizational things, it's a good idea. I know the bigger ones, it's the bigger DSPs and RMCs, they probably already have set up some policies, but especially the smaller ones, probably not, or so that can, you know, take, you don't have to invest that much time to think all the stuff, so it's a good idea. But you have, of course, be aware of your local laws, country-specific laws regarding restrictions in the COVID-19 pandemic.
I mean, I think that in itself is a very interesting thing, and we'll be tracking that over the next few months. I mean, again, Martina and I will probably do a webinar on this. Gordon, we're going to do some legal implication stuff. Wendy, you're going to be working on research. Carmelina, we're putting all that into the academy, and Peggy, you're going to be turning it all into a conference session at some point. So we're going to keep all this very integrated. But I think it's really interesting, you know, what you say. This is a common sense, best practice way of now continuing. We find ourselves in these extraordinary times. This isn't necessarily preparing for GDPR, where we all thought our companies were going to be burdened forever by the onerous restrictions that came about. Martina, thank you so much. We'll talk again in a minute. Carmelina, I'd love to talk to you now. We've been, like I said before, integrating all of these 5 pillars of EuRA's work now into our education programs. And we launched we made the MIM program entirely free for members back on the 9th of March. Would you like to update people on what happened?
Yes, well, for those people who don't know a lot about the Academy and how it's structured, we have 3 levels within the Academy, and at the basic level, the MIM level, is what we aim to offer to people who are entering the industry or people who are new to the industry or who want to formalise their qualifications. And all of that, as we've said, is free for EuRA members. And the only thing we made a small charge for is the assessments, because obviously from an admin point of view, we have to issue qualifications and records and things like that. And therefore there's a small charge for that, but we're really trying to support members through these really difficult times. We took a decision on the 9th of March, as you said, to make all of those assessments free, and as a result extend that to allow people, while they're on furlough or possibly not working, that they can actually be devoting that time to improving their skills and training. And we have had huge interest, huge take up. And since 9th of March, we have had, I think, 230 odd new students joining the Academy, and that actually equated to them taking over 2,000 entries into the assessments. So very shortly, hopefully, we should have an awful lot of much better qualified MIM graduates. It's just been a great testament to EuRA's provision that in Academy's only been running a year, and we've already got over 800 students on the Academy. As I said, for the basic MIM level is a great place to start when you take on people or they're new to the industry, and you just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. But then building on that, we also developed the MIM Plus program, and that gives us the opportunity to provide training that pushes people a little bit further, maybe recognizing particular expertise or people who want to work in very specific areas. And we've got some really brilliant modules on there. Obviously, Gordon's one about the legal compliance, so it gives a huge amount of information. We've obviously got stuff linking to the quality seal from Martina's point of view, but also achieving business growth, working on brand. We did a very quick, rough and ready one on business continuity to try and help members sort of through these difficult times. And it was a bit like Martina was just explaining, not a sort of absolute, you must follow this, but have you thought about these kind of things? And we're trying to respond to members. And obviously what we also managed to get up this time in the last few weeks, we've just finished the Coaching Approaches in Mobility program that's now fully available online, and that's got 4 different modules in the NIM Plus program. So there's a huge amount of flexibility in what's there if people want to expand their learning through this time. And we're really grateful to the support we've had from some of the companies who've really taken this. So we're going to do a quick name check to EuRA's in Spain, to ICANN in India, and in Austria to the Relocation Services Strogermeier, who have had some huge numbers go through. And it's really nice to see those members really investing in training now that we have got a bit of time to do that. So in terms of the program, there's really something there for everyone, but we'd also like to add more. So if any members have got ideas of things you think we should be adding, please let the office know, and we will endeavour to work on that. And as Tom said, everything access for free, assessments cost a little bit of money, but not at the moment. So I would say take advantage of it, because that's a huge saving. And we are currently estimating that up until the end of June, we'll allow members access for free. And after that, things are likely to go back to the way they were. So it's a good time to take advantage of it.
It is, and I mean, you know, it's great that the take up was, and people have been so positive about it, and so kind in saying, we're so pleased that you did this, thank you so much. And you know, it's honestly the least that we could do. In a way, timing is. It's like, Martina, I was just going to go back to you and say, when I started doing the interviews that we've had on YouTube over the last few weeks, and it wasn't deliberate, I wasn't choosing people who were only Quality Seal certified, but every person I spoke to who was said, well, of course we had the seal. So we had our business continuity plan in place. And it's a bit like Carmelina with the Academy, you know, in a way, it was slightly random that we put the whole thing online last year. Thank goodness we did.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we did, because we were able to roll it out like this with such simplicity. The other thing that I was just going to mention very briefly, because it's very close to my heart, the Coaching Approaches in Mobility program, we put that together, gosh, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
In conjunction with Oxford Brookes University. Wendy, you were part of that. Tad, you were part of that. We had an amazing group of people from right across the relocation spectrum come and brainstorm what that program was going to be. If you have not taken it, it's completely brilliant. It's incredibly broad. We had a whole team from the World Bank go through that when it was online with Oxford Brookes. They were incredibly positive about it, really saying it was one of the highest level of training they'd seen in mobility. So again, Carmelina, Wendy, thank you so much for putting that together and getting it back onto the Academy for free, people. For free.
Yeah, for free.
Thanks so much, Carmelina. Always great to see you. Gordon, how are you? Great to see you. First of all, I've got to say, I think you're approaching the highest number of likes for your kilt and whiskey shot in the back garden with Murphy on the app. So
that's fantastic. These are the things that really matter in life, and if there's a lesson from that, it's use your dog and wear your kilt if you're looking for both. I even put in, that was Irish whiskey, so I could put in the Irish quote as well.
What? I'm very surprised. No, it's
that's funny.
Tip on everybody looking for more likes on Instagram. That's all you need, a pet and a kilt. Gordon, thank you so much for everything you've been doing for EuRA over the last few years. First of all, can you take us through the legal guides? Because I know you've just been working to update all of that.
Exactly, yeah. Using the lockdown to really work on updating legal guides and MIM training as well. So the basic legal guide, which currently it's the 29 edition, the 2020 edition has just been completed, and I'll be firing that to you, Don, next week. And so that will be ready for publication. So we're bang up to date with that. On the GDPR separate guide, in fact, I'm now working with Martina on some documentation. We're looking at templates for businesses looking to have documentation in place for the GDPR. And so at the very least, I plan to add these new documents we're creating as appendices to an updated GDPR guide. And again, that's pretty much imminent. And turning to the MIM legal module, the main thing there is just freshening it up with new slides. The funny thing is that legally there haven't been any huge changes in the way that GDPR was an enormous change. And everything needed to be updated. At the moment, it's more like refreshing content and bringing in maybe some recent legal decisions just to make sure everything's as up to date as possible. But the fundamentals haven't really changed recently, though the rider I would add to that is, of course, Brexit. And I guess we'll know very shortly whether we have a Brexit deal or a no-deal Brexit, or even a delayed transition period. So the current transition period is due to end at the end of this calendar year. It's possible there could be a 1 year or 2 year extension to that. So as soon as we've got some news on that, I'm sure that you and I, Dom, will be putting together our next Brexit webinar and trying to work out what it means for relocation businesses.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was just going to mention, for completeness there, I mean, the other thing that is big on the horizon is, of course, the coronavirus. Now, health and safety is the first aspect. It goes without saying. And then there's the business and financial aspect. What will it mean for the economies in Europe? But there are some legal aspects developing as well. And you and I have talked about this, and we did a brief recording on some aspects of it, like what it means for insurance, what it means for existing contracts, for employment law. And I'm beginning to pick up that some countries in Europe may, for example, be introducing an absolute legal right to work from home wherever it's practical to do so. The latest country planning that is in fact Germany. So the coronavirus is going to be changing the way we work. I think that's pretty clear, not just in the short term, but probably in the longer term. So again, I'll be looking at what this really means in the context of the relocation industry, and we'll be sharing that in webinars, I'm sure, again, and feeding it into the European legal updates, etc.
Yeah, and also back into the academy. I think that we, in a way, I mean, I'm going to talk to Wendy in a second, but Gordon, I think one of the things that we will be working on over the coming months is some larger research on individual countries and what's going on with things like, for example, Germany saying, yes, you have the right to say that I want to work from home now. Those are big shifts in the way that we're going to perceive our working lives. And I'll just drop in there that Tad and I and the team have taken the decision that we will not be having an office anymore. That money is much better spent supporting members in terms of our training and our research and our seal and our legal and our content. So, all good stuff. So thank you so much, Gordon. Always great to see you. Wendy, it's lovely to see you. For those of you who are not aware, Wendy came on board as our strategic consultant for research just recently, and it's great to have you with us. You've done some great work with you over the years. I mentioned the Oxford Brookes coaching program, which has now become Coaching Approaches in Mobility. I know you are working with TAD on a very specific project, which there is a conference session on tomorrow, but we were on a very interesting call yesterday with Sabine Beerlocker. Do you want to outline what we talked about?
Yes. Yes, it is. It's a really interesting research project, and it's been led by Sabine Beerlocker in Switzerland, and it's a study that's going to look at the cultural impact of COVID-19 from a global perspective. So Sabine's research is going to focus on approximately about 20 countries worldwide, and it's going to be across 3 cultural dimensions. And it's going to look at how each have responded and reacted to their own government's restrictions that have been put in place during COVID-19, and to see whether there's a sort of cultural correlation between the different countries and cultures and their responses to managing the virus. So it's going to be really interesting, as you say, to see what comes out of this. And I think also at a wider level, we're really hoping that in a way, some of the results from this research study are going to provide some really useful information that might inform best practice at a more local level from country to country as the relocation industry adapts to sort of new ways of working that Gordon was talking about going forward. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that.
It really is. And I mean, when we were talking on the call yesterday, I mean, we've all seen such different responses in different places. And what Sabine's, laser-like focus honed in on was risk management. And how are these cultures at approaching risk? And additional research, it depends whose research you take. But, certain countries like the UK are quite risk averse. Other countries like America are very risk tolerant. And whether that informs what they did. And crucially, how people responded to
how people follow rules or not.
Yeah. I mean, I had an amazing photograph sent to me yesterday by Susanna Born in Spain, in Madrid, and for the first time, I think on Saturday, Tad, is that correct? They were able to go out to walk in the streets for the first time.
Yeah.
And the photograph she sent me, it was like Oxford Street at Christmas time. Extraordinary. So that's going to be fascinating. You're also working with TAD on another project.
Yes, so this is a really innovative project. So this is called the Relocation Recognition Project, and the aim of it is to generate much more visibility for the relocation industry as a whole. And I know Tad probably will talk about it in a bit in a minute. But basically, just as a very brief overview, it's the result of a unique collaboration between a group of UK DSPs. I think it's been led by Simon Johnston, if I'm right, who's chair of the Association for Relocation Professionals in the UK, as well as Tad, who's CEO. The first phase of the project, I think, has been to lobby the British government on behalf of the relocation industry in the UK to create awareness of the size and value of the industry in the UK for recognition of special status. And then the second phase is now to do the same, but for other relocation companies, both in the EU and worldwide. And there is going to be this talk, as you said, and I know Tab will go through the detail, but it's got a lot of momentum to it. And I think from the first phase, the government are listening, and that is really, really exciting. So
it is. And Tad, so tomorrow afternoon at 1600 Central European time, that session will be live. Tad, do you just want to talk a bit more about how this came about?
Well, very briefly, it all started with a group of UK members getting together and starting to talk to each other. And then I became involved because I was talking to Simon Johnson, who, as Wendy says, is the chair of the ARP. And then we were talking about lobbying government. And then there was a discussion about, well, what can we actually show government? And then I actually think I sort of said, well, maybe we should get some statistics. So then we put together a short questionnaire, which we sent out to people, and we got a 40% take up, which was brilliant compared to previous times. And now we're using that information to lobby the UK government. and we'll roll it out to the rest of the world, as it were, next week.
Thank you, Tad. That's great. And like I say, for full details of that project and how that's going to look and how it's going to potentially be of use to you wherever you are working, please tune into the session tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock. Peggy, how are you? It's lovely to see you.
Thank you. I'm good. It's great to see everybody.
Good.
I wish it could be in person, but we're not.
Yeah, I know. I mean, just to make everybody really jealous, because I've been there several times, the pool terrace at the Melia in Seville is the place to hang out in the sun with a cocktail, as opposed to in my study. But there we go. So, Peggy, you are our strategic consultant for intellectual content. I know that you have steered the last few conferences towards the kind of integrated whole that we're talking about in terms of taking something from our research, something from our education. Obviously, we always have quality and legal there. And you did a huge amount of work on the In Seville conference.
Yeah.
What we're doing about that and how you're going to move forward.
Yeah, thank you. I actually, you're flattering me, because the people that do the work are the people the presenters who are on board to be there this week. And we fully intend to run the same program next year. And I think I want to touch first on the theme. And as the rest of you were talking, I was sitting here thinking, wow, we really do want to run the same program, but can we just extend it by a day or something? Because there's going to be all these other things related to the COVID-19, the world, the work, I'm even thinking, I probably shouldn't throw this out without talking to Dom offline, but a whole separate session like the corporate housing and the immigration symposium having to do with this, because this cultural work that Wendy mentioned, that's been on my mind for months about, living in the United States and how we I guess do have a country culture, but we're so many different states, and in terms of the risk and the following the rules and everything that everybody's supposed to be doing, it's quite different. But back to the conference. So we do intend to run the same program next year. We've built on the theme, and I think the theme is such an important aspect of the work that I do. It makes my work easier because I can sort of manage the topics a little bit as people are getting their presentation started, by reminding them to please have to build their presentations around the theme of the conference. And recognition, reputation, and relevance, like all the themes that we have every year, they're very general, which is great, so it doesn't tie people down too much, but they're thought-provoking, and they allow for creativity on the part of the presentation. So I think I'm mentioning this because as we prepare for next year, over the next couple of months, I will be working closely with the presenters that are online to on board to do this, and also the moderators, to let them know, of course, we will respect any changes that they have to make, necessitated by whatever's going on in their lives or their countries or their companies. And we will, of course, have contingency plans to add sessions if we need to. But I do want all of the presenters that are on board already to know that we welcome you next year, and will be, again, the conference theme will be the same, but there'll be so many opportunities to tweak it a little bit if you want to, having to do with what we've all just been through for the past 12 months, by the time we get there, exactly 12 months. Yeah. So really watch for more information, all of you, probably late summer to early fall. Is that appropriate, Dom? Yeah. To see kind of where we are, if we'll be asking for additional proposals for additional opportunities to speak. Like I said, I'll be working with the current presenters and moderators, and just making sure. I have been in touch with them a month or so ago, just to make sure everybody's okay and how everybody's doing, and I intend to do that on a little bit more regular basis in the upcoming months. So great. That's that for the conference.
Great. I mean, it's inevitable that, you know, I mean, we had such a strong program this year, and we had some amazing sessions, great speakers.
We did.
And it's inevitable they will want to make sure that what they're discussing is relevant to the world we're going to find ourselves in next March. So as far as you're concerned, as far as we're concerned as an organization, they have the flexibility to go whichever direction they want.
Yep. Absolutely. We'll welcome changes. We'll welcome, if we ran the program, I'm convinced if we run it in 2021 exactly as it is now, it like Dom said, it's an awesome program. It's really, really top shelf. So that'll be fine. But I'm sure everybody's going to want to put it into the context of the relevance of what's going on in the world and the industry.
It would be the huge elephant in the room, wouldn't it? It'd be like, let's just not talk about that. I mean, to be honest though, by the time this comes, we probably don't want to talk about this at all anymore. You know, we've heard nothing about this. I just wanted to pick up on one thing that you said there. I mean, you're right. We chose the theme recognition, reputation, revelation, and my goodness, I mean, the recognition piece, like we were just saying, tomorrow afternoon's session on lobbying for recognition of mobility, where we were coming from in terms of recognition was more about, do you know what our industry does? Michelle's great phrase, you know, we want to make sure that when you say I work in mobility, people go, oh, you're the people who move the world. I think our focus is going to be slightly different by then. It's going to be recognition of the part that our industry is playing globally in the regrowth of our economies. So it's going to be really interesting to be together next year. Yeah.
Well, that's why I said what I did about I'm really always impressed with the conference theme. And for those of you out there that don't know, the theme is, I think it's selected by the board, right, Dom? Usually or maybe Dom makes it up. I don't know.
I make up several and then they choose.
It's a creative process.
Yes.
But it's always, it's interesting to me because I've worked with different organizations on conferences, and you can tie people down too much by having a very specific theme. This is great. So recognition, that fits a million places. And kudos to the work that you're doing, or that the organization or the committee is doing that Tad spoke about, lobbying the governments. I mean, this has been on my mind for my entire career, because it's still hard to explain what we do and the ROI involved. And so this is great. We have such great opportunities going forward in the next year with the basis that we already have in the content. So I'll just leave it at that.
And again, thank you, Peggy. That's great. And just to draw that all back together, it was very much our strong intent this year that after Seville, we would then be working with those speakers and moderators to put some of that content into the Academy. And I think more now than ever, the more that we can get into the Academy, the more that we can, maybe extend, the no-cost access to the quizzes for a while, then the better off, hopefully, and the more relevant we are for everybody. So in terms of relevance, I think we have an amazing team of people here. When I think of the journey that EuRA's been on over the last 2 decades, we're in probably the strongest place that we've been in terms of what we're able to offer for the members at no additional costs, thanks to the expertise of the 5 people sitting here, plus Tad, but basically you guys. So Gordon, Carmelina, Martina, Wendy, Peggy, it's always a pleasure to work with you, and thank you so much for everything you do for EuRA.
Can I make one final point about that before you move on to Tad, just with respect to the content on the Academy? Obviously, we are always looking to expand it. One of the ways that members can contribute to that is with the case studies, because we didn't mention that with respect to the levels of training, we actually want people to supply us with case studies which they can go for their fellowship. Because as a EuRA organisation, we love to develop a library of resources, which we'll ask people to complete a case study, which can be something which is very relevant to the organisation. It just occurred to me that while the COVID-19 and Martina's points about changing work and different parts of the world operating differently, there may be some topics which make really good case study material in the next year or so, where people have had to change how they work or implement things, and that would actually work really well as a case study. And then linked to that, I know you will have heard from Michelle, and I think Peg's involved as well with respect to that recognition piece, and we'd like to collect some stories, which you'll hear more from Michelle about, obviously. Again, just for content for the Academy, for members, to give us that library of resources that helps people learn, and then people will know what we do.
Absolutely, and it does. It turns into then a cohesive whole. So in terms of the MIM Fellowship, I'm just going to very quickly draw your attention to, in the EuRA Academy, there is a full module.
Thank you for watching the little film.
See, shut up.
That proceeded.
Listening to the sound of my own voice is very short. I'm going to say let's just get it away. Basically, if you go into the EuRA Academy, you will find a full module that is free to enroll for on how to undertake your MIM Fellowship. As Carmelina said, it's a case study, 2,500 words. It's meant to be relevant to what you're doing. So like you say, if you're about to, for example, put in place your policies for how we work in a post-COVID-19 world, that's a great case study with many, many things. So, you know, and it then helps everybody else as well, and it gives recognition. And the idea is that we have more and more of those case studies available. Wendy, yes, thank you.
Can I just put a quick shout out as well for research to follow on from what Carmelina is saying? And I think also in respect to the situation we're in, it's about focusing on research that is relevant to members. So I think, you know, if members could, I don't know if there's a Q&A thing on the app that they can do actually now, or if they can call into the office, but actually to put in any suggestions for research topics that they think would be relevant going forward, because I think there's a need now to look at research short-term, medium-term and long-term. So it will be really helpful to guide us to creating a focus for that.
Yeah, thank you very much for saying that, Wendy, because I'd actually forgot that.
Awesome.
After the cross-cultural research and the research that Tad's doing on recognition and lobbying, the next piece that we're going to send out will be Wendy asking you, what is it that we can do that's going to be of the most benefit and use to you as our members and delegates? And yes, there is right now online. If you are watching this session on the Hoover desktop app, you'll see the chat thing just to the right. Just put in any suggestions that you've got. We will record them all and we will take that on board. Tad, would you like to close?
Yes, I'd just like to make one observation, that whilst we've been sitting here having this discussion, 3 or 4 people even have signed up for the Thinkific Academy. People actually doing it as we speak.
Yeah.
Yes, we have one more strategic consultant joining us shortly. Will be Jacqueline Biasma, and she will be working with us in terms of the supply chain and working with the RMCs. And on that point, at some point in the relatively near future, we will start with some sort of RMC meeting via Zoom, or RMC and DSP meeting via Zoom, to get those sessions going again, so that we can get the discussions going again, so that we can move forward. But I'd just like to say thank you to you all, and I look forward to seeing you in person, even at 2 meters, I don't care, at some point in the future.
Absolutely. It's been great to see you. As I say, I'm just sorry that we're not sat around that beautiful pool in the Spanish sunshine, but we will be back together very soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for everything you do for us. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.